I want to do a brief little exercise, but I promise it won't be too painful. But could everybody please stand up for just a moment? Now, I promise I won't make you fall into each other's arms or do that sort of a silly thing. But I would like to start out our conversation with a little bit of honesty with one another. And so I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you to sit down in a certain order. And I would just ask you to be honest with me today. The question is this. If your company has... if you would characterize your company as currently stalled, that is, this year you think is going to be worse revenue-wise than last year, I'd invite you to go ahead and sit down. And just so you know, I would be sitting too if I had a chair here. Okay. Everybody looking around the room? Now next, if your company within the last, say, 2 to 5 years has stalled, you can have a seat now. A few more people. All right. How about the last 5 to 10 years? If your company has stalled, you can have a seat. Ooh, there's still some people standing. Terrific. Now, if your company has ever stalled. Okay. So for the rest of us, look around at the people standing. First of all, they deserve a round of applause. Second of all, if everybody would give them a business card, because we all know that their turn is coming, isn't it? My point is simply this. Stalled growth happens to all of us. Now, we're in an unusual time. I wish I could take credit for it, having written the book on stalled growth. Actually, I'm glad I can't take credit for it because you'd run me out of the room. This is a very unusual time in the U.S. economy. It's unprecedented in our lifetime, certainly. We've all been through recessions before, but we've been through nothing like this. I came across a quote from a professor at UCLA, which I thought was very interesting. His name is Richard Rummelt. And he says, "The most important element of a strategy is a coherent viewpoint about the forces at work, not a plan." Let me read that again. "The most important element of a strategy is a coherent viewpoint about the forces at work, not a plan." So he's saying that it's not about the plan, it's about understanding what's going on out there in the world. Let me give you a few corporate names and tell me if you can see what they have in common. Applebee's, Blockbuster, Buick, Chico's, Chrysler, Dell, Ford, Gap, HP, Home Depot. Can you tell these are alphabetical? Intel, Kleenex, Kodak, Krispy Kreme. I think that's what was in my bread basket. Palm, Pier 1, Pottery Barn, Quest, Radio Shack, Sara Lee, Saturn, Schwab, Sears, Sprint, Starbucks, Sun Microsystems, Timberland, Yahoo. What do all those companies have in common, do you suppose? It's not a trick question. They're all stuck right now. And there's a lot more than that. I could be here all day reading corporate names. They're all stuck. And the question I want to ask you is, are these companies and yours run by incompetence? Are they run by idiots who don't know their way around a business plan? No, they're not. Some of them may be, but for the most part, they're not. They're run by some of the finest business minds we have in our nation today. But they're still stuck, and they're still stalled. And that's one of the points that I want to make today, which I discovered along my journey. Now, I'd like to spend the few minutes I have with you today talking actually about failure, my own failure, not success. I find failure is much more interesting than success. And I think, when a speaker gets up and has a lovely introduction, thank you for that, it's easy to want to have everybody think that you're successful. But honestly, the lessons that I learned and the reason that I wrote the book came about through a dismal failure of my own company, which I'm going to share with you a little bit about. The other thing is, when somebody talks about success, it tends to be either they leave something out or they're not telling you the whole truth. And I'm just going to try to tell you the whole truth today. I think success is a lot less interesting than failure, especially in the times that we're in. So a brief journey about how the book came about and how the research that informed the book really changed the way I look at the world as a marketer. I've been in the business for 23 years, worked at some pretty large and well-respected agencies. Mr. Klein and Mr. Fogarty will recognize the name Della Femina. That used to mean something different in our business than it means today. Jerry Della Femina is quite an iconoclastic kind of a man, and he was the Crispin Porter Boguski of his day, if you want to look at it that way, for those of you in the room who know that. About 12 years ago, my partner Pat Wallwork and I decided to strike out on our own. I'd worked for 4 different advertising agencies, large and small, multinational and boutique, and through a strange set of circumstances, we decided to go out on our own. Pat is a media planner and buyer. She came from Procter & Gamble, is terrific, one of the most talented ladies I've ever worked with. So we launched our firm, and we had no clients, we had no prospects, we had no money. We did have VC money. I don't know if any of you have launched with VC money, but we had 3 venture capitalist firms that were interested in us. Their names were Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. I actually accept, for all of you direct marketers, all those mailings that you get every day, for a month I accepted them all before I left my previous job, and they were going to check and see they had no income. So I had a stack of credit cards this thick, ordered by the cash advance limit and the finance charges, and I just used them one at a time, hoping that I wouldn't get to the bottom one. So to make a long story very short, I didn't get to the bottom one. We went through the 3 stages of corporate startup, which is get a paycheck. That took a while, but we did. The second is get to profitability. And the third is get to sustainability, or some element of sustainability. No company is truly ever fully sustainable. And we were able to do that, and within 5 years, we looked up, and we were on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. 5 years of hard work, of adding staff, of moving offices, of adding clients, of doing wonderful work, we think. And we were one of the 500 fastest growing companies in America, and we felt pretty good about that. We were very proud of ourselves. We thought we had found the secret sauce to growth, especially ad people. You know, we tend to think we know it all. And so we were applying our lessons to our own business, and certainly thought that was the case. There's only one problem, and that is between the time we got the letter in the mail saying, congratulations, you're one of America's most successful companies, and the conference in Palm Springs, where you get to walk up on a stage like this and get an award and get patted on the back and hobnob with 499 others masters of their universe, our growth started to stall. Now, those of you here in the agency business probably understand this, that we have down months, we have up months. There's some randomness to our business. A lot of it's due to the kind of client mix we have, or what might be going on in the economy. So we've had a down month or two before. Usually a couple months out of the year we'll be down. But this was different. We had 3 or 4 down months in a row. So by the time I got to Palm Springs and was sitting around with all the other successful people who were talking about expanding their physical plants and hiring new people and securing additional rounds of financing, I was quietly not talking about the problems that my company was having. And I felt quite a bit like a failure. I felt very like a fraud in many ways, like I shouldn't have been there, like our appearance on the list was a mistake. It was a very odd and icky feeling. It might have been similar to the feeling that you may have had when I asked you to sit down at the beginning of the presentation today. You don't really want to do it. It's like, well, it's true, I should sit down, but I don't really feel good about it. That's the way I felt when our growth had stalled. Well, necessity being the mother of invention, and us not knowing what the cause of our stalled growth was, we said we're now in an exclusive club. We're members of the Inc. 500, and once you're on that list, you're on that list forever. You can go to their conferences forever, of course. They want to make money, too. And the list had started in 1982, so for about 20 years there had been a number of companies on the list. There were about 4,500 total over the course of history. So we said, being the marketers that we are, let's go do some market research. Let's go back and talk to the Inc. 500 companies, the companies that have been on the list dating all the way back to 1982. Let's find out what we can learn from those that kept growing, maintained their trajectory, and from those that might have stalled, like us. It was a little bit of an act of desperation, and believe me, when you're stalled, and the point I didn't mention is 94% turnover in 18 months. We even lost a partner out of it. It was a very, very difficult time. When your growth is stalled and your revenue is stalled and you're watching people walk out of your office about once a week, never to come back, and often not replacing them, it's not an easy thing to invest your own money in expensive marketing research. I'm glad that we had the experience, because now when I advise our clients about what they need to do, especially in tough times like these, I can empathize with them. But we didn't know what else to do, so we did the research. And what we found really opened my eyes. What we found was amazing. 2 things, generally speaking. The first thing was we found, and you might think this is silly, but it meant a lot to me, that we weren't alone. When you look at the Inc. 500 companies over the years, about 18% of them were in the same position that we were. They had actually gone flat or negative. 18%, 1 in 5. That, believe it or not, made me feel a lot better, because maybe I wasn't such an idiot. I had been blaming myself. I'd been going home every night, looking in the mirror and beating my head against the wall, wondering why I couldn't make things happen. Well, here were 20% of the most successful companies in America over the last 20 years, and they were going through the same thing. That actually gave me a great deal of comfort. The second thing that we found really is the foundation for my message today, and that is the 7 factors that tend to correlate with stalled growth. These served as the foundation for our company's recovery plan. We followed these factors today. We're keeping an eye on them even now as things are difficult. And I want to briefly share with you what the 7 factors are, and maybe you can think about your own company in this context.